Okay, everyone, welcome to Google Fundamentals session 2. It's absolutely awesome to have you here. I know how precious everyone's time is. So we're going to get straight into it today. So first of all, I'd like to start off with acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we serve our learning communities. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We acknowledge any and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this learning today. The land we are on now, the land we live, breathe, eat and sleep, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. May we walk alongside the custodians of this country as we seek voice, treaty and truth. Let us pray. Father of light and wisdom, thank you for giving me a mind that can know and a heart that can love. Help me to keep learning every day of my life, no matter what the learning may be. Let me be convinced that all knowledge leads to you, and let me know how to find you and love you in all the things you have made, especially the students before me each day. Encourage me when the learning is difficult and I'm tempted to give up. Encourage me when the teaching is difficult and I'm tempted to give up. Enlighten me in these times and grant me the grace to put my knowledge and belief to use and strive to enable every student to experience life in all its fullness. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Awesome. So just a quick recap of our operating norms. This session is being recorded, and again, it will be uploaded to the Google Classroom and the website later. So please make sure you're a part of that Google Classroom. I can put the link in the chat if any of you haven't joined that already. Please make sure that your microphone is on mute unless you are talking. It just helps the background noise. And finally, if you please have your video on if your bandwidth permits. It's great to see faces and help us and me and Chris to relate to you and your questions. And also, if you do have any questions, please do put them in the chat and Chris will answer them. Or if you want to, you can always take yourself on mute as we are a smallish group. Okay, so our learning intentions today. So participants will learn different ways that classroom technology can be used to support existing teaching programs. Learn how technology can be used in a range of ways, from simple substitution to more sophisticated redefinition of learning tasks. And learn about a range of tools inside Google Workspace for education and how they can be used to make teaching and learning more efficient. So we know we will be successful if we're able to understand, the how existing and future classroom tasks can be supported with technology, identify ways in which technology can be used appropriately in ways that engage and support student learning, and apply the new knowledge to my local context. So this is the link to the Google Classroom if you haven't already joined. That is the QR code. I will put that back up at the end as well. So if we haven't got any further questions, I think we can get straight into it, and I will reintroduce Chris, our Google for Education Technology in Education expert. I know there's been so much positive feedback from the week before when I wasn't here, Chris, how amazing and how all your emails are looking beautiful. You've decluttered your inboxes, you've bookmarked things. So great that session was so useful. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, thanks for joining again. And it's fantastic to see all the activity that's been happening. Let me share my screen. Oh, where's the button gone? Here we go, Zoom noob, desktop, that one, and then I've got to press this to make it come back again. Haha, I'm getting good at this. So, hi everyone, my name is Chris. I work at Google. I was a teacher for most of my life, but I now work with teachers helping them get the most out of our Google stuff. So today we're going to be digging into, today's session we're looking at 4 things. And someone might need to mute, I think. There's a bit of noise coming through. Sorted? Okay, excellent. Just before we dive in, I just want to recap on some things from last week. So this is all the stuff from last week. If you haven't caught up with it, the session 1 recording, so the video from last week is in there. So if you do need to go back and catch up, it is right there. And the other thing I want to look at this, skills check session 1. So this is your homework that I left for you last week. 41 people have done it. 41 people are still thinking about it. So, you know, if you have done it, don't forget when you've done it, you've got to go up and click the little button that says mark as done. Even if you do the work, if you don't click that little button, you don't move from this column to that column, then it looks like you haven't done it. So, so yeah, just check on that if that's you. There's also, as you figured out, there's these tasks that are little practice exercises to help you just, what's the word? Solidify your learning from what we cover. And there's some class comments in there as well. And you can see there's been quite a lot of discussion going on. So I love the fact that people are getting engaged and they're sort of doing the activities and engaging in conversation, asking questions. That is all fantastic. This week, we are going to be talking about these things: docs, slides, drawings, and Jamboard. If you go into the session 2 information block here in Classroom, there's actually, I've made some session 2 notes. And in the notes, it's just kind of a blow by blow of the sorts of things we're going to be covering today. I've really just kind of mentioned, you know, bullet points, and I will unpack all of these as we go. And that's, of course, you'll be able to watch the video to go back and unpack any of those if you need to. So hopefully that is helpful. And at the end of today, there will also be another skills check, and you can, oh, one person's already done it. What a keen person. And it'll be on docs, slides, and drawings. There is nothing here for Jamboard because Jamboard technically is not part of a level 1 certification. So we don't actually have one of these little cards for it. But I made some tutorials for students recently, and they've been posted on the Catholic Learning Online website. So if you like to learn more about Jamboard, there's a whole bunch of stuff there as well. And by the way, those videos were made specifically for students. So if you've got kids you're teaching and you want to give them some information about Jamboard, you can direct them towards those videos. All right, phew. Okay, let's dive in. So first of all, we're going to start talking about Google Docs. So I'm going to go back to my Google Drive over here for a second. And let's just go to Drive. We talked about Drive last week. Point. But I'm just going to go into, let's make a new folder. So I'm just going to call this folder, I'm going to call this folder session 2. It's not week 2, it's session 2. So I've created a folder there called session 2. I'm going to pop into there. And when you create a new doc, you do it the same way as we created new folders. And we kind of touched on this last week. So when you click that new button, this is where you create a new folder and be able to upload files and things into Drive. But you've also got the ability here to create a new doc. And in later sessions, we'll talk about sheets and so on. And this is where you get all of those. And also don't overlook the fact that if you go down the bottom to this more, there's actually a whole bunch of more things that pop out here. So it's not just these 4 things. There's actually a lot more than that. And you'll find them hiding under more. You'll also notice there's a little arrow on the side here. So if you just click the word Google Doc, you'll actually make a brand new Google Doc. But if you hover over the arrow there, you'll see you get the option to do either a blank document or from a template. And templates, we're not really going to dive into templates as part of the fundamentals course, but just to make you aware, if you go into the templates thing here, there is actually a whole bunch of templates that are available. Well, this is CENet, so that's a bit different. But if you go to the general, you'll see there's a whole bunch of templates. So if you've got kids that are, you know, you want to give them a starting point for working on a document, if you direct them to the template gallery, you know, there's reports and book reports and sort of all sorts of things already made there that you can dive into. So just be aware that that's there. I am, however, going to start a new Google Doc, just a completely blank new one. And you can see all I did there was I just went into Google Drive and I clicked on New Google Doc and made it. I could have also right-clicked inside Google Drive itself and I get the option there for a new Google Doc. Does exactly the same thing. But I also want to show you one other little shortcut, and that is if you just open up a Chrome browser and you type in docs.new, that's a little shortcut as well. If you type docs.new as the web address and press enter, that will also make a new Google Doc for you as well. And in case you were wondering, slides.new makes a new slideshow, sheets.new, new sheet, forms.new, new forms. So you can do that. Oh, someone just said, Anne just said, why don't I go to the Channel 9 button? I can do that too. I could also open a new tab. I could go to the Channel 9 button or the waffle or the launcher, and I could go in here and I could say new Google Doc. So I've just given you 4 ways you can create a new doc there, either from the new button, from the right click, from the docs.new, or from the launcher. They all work. They do exactly the same thing. So good tip there, Anne. Thank you very much. Now, once you're in a new document, there's a whole bunch of things I don't need to teach you, because this is a lot like what you're used to. If you've grown up using other desktop publishers like Word or, you know, Apple's Pages or something else, a lot of this will be super familiar. So for example, I probably don't need to ask you what this button up here with the B does, because you know it's bold, you know this is underlined, you know that's italic, you know this is going to be centering, and so on. So there's a lot about Google Docs you don't have to learn, because you already know, right? Because you've been using other tools like this for a long time. So adding text is like, you know, hello, and you just type something in just like that. What I did want to show you though, let's type something, hello there, this is a doc. This is where you get to see how terrible my typing is, right? So you go and type in there, and you can obviously select it and make changes. So I can bump up the file size, I can make it bold, I can change its color. There's all the usual things you'd expect to be able to do, and I probably don't need to explain how you do them. One thing I will say that is a little bit different to other things you're used to is in the list here of fonts, you get a few fonts to choose from. So I can change it to a different font. That's a bit hard to read, so I might change it to something else. So you've got a bunch of fonts you can pick from. But I just want to point out there's actually thousands of fonts to pick from, but you notice that in this list, there's only, you know, there's a limited amount here. What you can do if you want to fine tune this list, because I don't know about you, but I remember when I was using Microsoft Word, you go to the fonts list and there'd be like all these hundreds of fonts, most of them. So what you can do is go to more fonts, and over here, this list on the left is the fonts that you've got. Oh, sorry, the fonts that you can have. And this list on the other side is the fonts that you've got that you're using. So let's say I want to use Oswald. I just tick it. If I want to use, I don't know, let's pick another fancy one. Pacifico, right? I tick it. And as you tick these different fonts over this side, it adds it into the list. So when you go back now to that font list, you actually get the font added. So there's Pacifico, there's Oswald, and so on. So, you know, if you want to have different fonts, you can do that really easily. Okay, that's not part of level 1. That's a little bonus tip for you. Okay, so that's adding stuff. Now, as a teacher, I'm just going to go to a more normal font for a second. As a teacher, one of the things you will want to do is give feedback to students. And Docs has this amazing system called commenting, right? And the commenting button is this little one up the top here. It looks kind of like a speech bubble with a plus sign in it. You're just hovering over it there. And what you can do is if you want to leave some feedback on something, you can select whatever it is. This is a doc, right? And you'll notice that I can either click this button or I get these little pop-ups on the side here, and I can leave some feedback. So I can say, let's add a comment to that. And my comment to this would be, this is a neat way to leave feedback, right? And I can leave that comment. That comment is attached to that piece of text that I just highlighted. So if I click away from that, you'll notice it's highlighted in yellow. And if I click back on it, you'll notice that the comment on the side kind of floats in to let me know that it's the comment I'm talking about. And I'll show you what I mean. If I add a second comment here, I'm going to add a comment to the word hello, and I'll say this is a greeting, right? And I'll say comment on that. You'll notice that I've got 2 comments now, and I've got 2 highlights. And the way you tell which highlight is attached to which comment is you simply click on it, and you notice it moves in slightly. If I click on the other one, it moves in slightly. So you can actually leave hundreds of comments in student work if you want to, and it's always really easy to know which comment is attached to what, because it sort of moves in and highlights a little bit higher when you click on it. Okay, the other nice thing about comments that I want to show you is sometimes you want to leave a comment in a document and you want to make sure someone sees that comment. So for example, JJ, I'm going to use you as the example here. So if I want to put a comment in here and make sure that JJ sees it, what I can do is when I leave my comment, I put a plus sign and I start typing the person's name. If I can. JJ, what's your email address start with? I thought it was just JJ.
JJ.PUR.
Spell the last name again for me.
PUR.
PUR.
PON.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay.
I usually do the @ sign, but you do plus now?
You do plus or you can do at. Let's try the at sign. That works as well. jj.purton. Plus or at symbol. They both work. At. So I don't know why this is not filling it in for me. So I'm just going to go with someone who will fill in for me. I'm going to do myself. There you go. So I'm leaving a comment for myself. You can just type the whole email address in, or if you've emailed that person before from this account, it will actually show as well. And then you can leave that comment, right? And what will happen when you do that, first thing it'll do is it will share the document automatically, because there's no point leaving a comment for someone on this document if they can't see it. So it automatically prompts you to share the file with them. So yeah, I'm going to let them edit this file and say comment and say okay. Right, and it's done. And you can see that it did two things there. It actually added this person in with an email address. That person now gets an email to say, oh, someone left a comment for you in this document, and they can click it and just go straight to the document to see what's going on. And the other thing it did was, if I click on the share button up here, you'll notice that it actually tells me it automatically shared that with the correct person. So very powerful, this adding people in here. This is called I mean, I know we used an at symbol there, but we generally refer to that as a plus reply, because it used to start with a plus, it still does. So plus replying, very important skill. Now, there's a new thing in Docs that you might not know about. So let me show you this, because it's relevant to some other things I want to show you. First of all, the next thing I wanted to show you was how to add a footer. Now, a footer or a header is just that area at the top or bottom of a page where you can leave you know, some information, and it then appears on every single page. So if I go to multiple pages, so to add a footer, you would go insert, headers and footers, and here you can add a header or a footer. So if I want to put a footer on this page, I can go in here and it opens up this bottom of the page here, and I'll say this is a footer, right? And that will appear on every single page in the document, right? So if I go to page 2, if I make a page 2, it'll appear there as well. So that's a footer. You're probably familiar with those. Here's the thing I want to warn you about. We have a new thing in Google Docs now called pageless format. And I'll tell you why we've got it. Because in the early days of word processing, people would type up documents on before computers, let's go back a ways, people would type things up on a typewriter, right? And then computers came along, and then the idea on the computer became like, well, this is a virtual piece of paper, and the computer is like a virtual typewriter. So it kind of just became a version of what we used to do before computers were around. But I think you'd agree that there's a lot of documents we make these days will probably never be printed. Like they actually will never end up being printed, because they will always be electronic documents. So we changed the thing recently in the file menu in Docs. You've got the option down here under page setup to change to this new format called pageless. Now, if you stick with the page mode, which is the one we've always had, you've got all these things you'd probably recognize. This is where you can switch from portrait to landscape mode. You can change the paper size. So if you want to change to like a different format of paper, that's all kept there. In Australia, we tend to use A4, so I'll leave it there. If you have students with dyslexia and they would benefit from having a different colored background, so, you know, we used to print some things on like blue paper for some students, you can come in here and you can change the background color of the page. So you can actually make it a blue page if you'd like to do that. So that's all just there under the page setup. I'm just going to turn that back to white again. And here's all your margins. So this is all where you set up the page. But we've got this new format. I'm just going to make that, just accept that again. So, right. So we've got this new format called pageless. When you switch to pageless, it actually gets rid of the page, and it treats the entire thing as just one big white space. There is no page concept. There's no end of page. There's no margins per se. There's no edge of the page. Because of that, if you go into pageless mode and you try and put in a footer, you notice there's no option now to put in a footer, because a footer doesn't make sense if you're not on a page, if it's pageless. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I know I got caught out when this first happened, because I went to put a footer in and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't understand why. And then I realized, oh, I'm in pageless format. Footers don't make sense. So if you want to do something like a footer, or, you know, page numbers, or something that's like relative to a page, you do need to make sure that in the settings down here in page setup, you are using a page format, not a pageless format. Hope that makes sense. Okay. And I just glanced at the chat, and then Melissa said, can you remove fonts just as easily? Yes, Melissa, you absolutely can. You just click on them and they go away in that more fonts dialog box. Okay. The other thing that I think is a real strength of Google Docs, and I love this about Google Docs, is the ability to put images into a document. So we've got the insert menu up here where you can insert an image. And you'll notice there's 5 different, or actually 6 different options here. You can insert an image. If you've got a file that sits on your computer, you can upload it from your computer, probably similar to what you're familiar with the other system. But we've got web search built directly in here. So for example, if I want a picture of a, I don't know, a koala, I can go search web, and this search box appears on the side of the page here, and I can go and search for, say, koala. I do that, and a whole bunch of pictures pop up, and I go, well, I like that one, that's kind of cute. Insert that, and that picture will insert directly from the internet. Now, I don't know, I used to teach some young students, and I found that when we started using Google Docs, one of the side benefits that I didn't expect was because when students stick pictures in things and they can do it directly from the web, they're not going off somewhere else to find things and getting lost on the internet and coming back to their work 20 minutes later. They're literally doing it from directly inside the document here. They pick the picture they want, click it, and it's done. So things get done a lot quicker. And plus, I think it's pretty simple as well. So that's one way you can put pictures in. The other way you can put pictures in is image. So if you've got a photo in your Drive, you can do that. If you've got it in your Google Photos collection, you can do that. If you know its URL, so you've got the address of where that picture is stored on the web, you could put the URL in. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. But I particularly love this one, this camera. If you're on a computer or a Chromebook that has a camera, a webcam attached to it, you can click on camera. It will ask you for permission to use the camera, which you have to allow. And then there's the camera, right? So if I want to take a picture of, I don't know, let's say I've just made this beautiful water bottle in my, one of my classes, right? And I've got this water bottle, and I say, okay, I want to do that. So I click on capture. That's a nice picture. I'll say insert. It takes that picture and inserts directly into the document. So I don't know how long some of you have been teaching. I've been teaching long enough to remember the days when we had to run around with thumb drives and all sorts of things to try and get an image from the camera to the document, and it would take a lot of time and messing around. I love the fact that this is just built in now, and I can just go up to the insert menu, image, camera, it opens up, and I go insert, and boom, there it is. Well, that was the same picture, but you get the idea. So that's inserting an image. Super, super quick way to do it. Okay.
Chris, we've just got a question about the page list part. What would be the reasons we would use those?
So Tony, I would use page list because if I'm working on a document that I know won't be printed, like it's only ever going to be a web-based document, having it in one continuous canvas, if you like, rather than sort of these pages, I feel like it makes it easier to read because it's just a continuous thing rather than being interrupted by an artificial break every so often. So I think there's that. It looks a lot cleaner, but you've totally got the choice. You can go paged or pageless. It's entirely up to you. And Anne just said, did I just take a pic from my computer? Yes, I did. I just used the webcam, and that's just the insert image camera option just there. And that will fire up your camera where you can take a picture just like that, and then hit the insert button. And, oh, why didn't it put the wrong picture in? Why did I do that? Clicking things without realizing. I want that picture. Insert. There you go. So pretty easy to do, Anne. Hope that is helpful. And you'll notice too, when I put those pictures in, it actually pushed me to a second page. And so I have the footer there on the bottom of the second page as well, because that's what footers do. All right. Let's just talk about sharing for a second. So the thing about Google Docs that's always been kind of, I guess, our special sauce that we do differently. And I know, Microsoft do a similar thing now, but I guess they do it because we did. And that is this idea of sharing a document. So, back in the day, if you had a document, you wanted someone else to have it, you'd attach it to an email and you'd send it to them. or you drop it in a file server somewhere and they'd have to go and pick it up. We think there's a simpler way to do that, and that's this idea of sharing. So when you create a document, if I want to share this with a specific person, I can click on the share button up in the top corner there and simply type in their name. So I'm going to share this with Frank. I'm going to just click on that. I can use that one, I think, Frank. And then once you decide who you're sharing a document with, you can then decide, what do you want them to do with it? Should they just be able to view it? Do you want them to be able to leave comments on it? So I showed you the comments before where you can leave a comment. Should they just be able to leave a comment but not actually change anything? Or do you want to collaborate completely and make them an editor? Now you can both work together. So I'm going to make Frank an editor, and I'll hit the send button there, and that's going to go off. And so now Frank will be a co-editor on that. And Frank, if you're still there and you're still listening, if you want to pop into that document, if you can, if you can't, don't worry. And you'll see that I've got those people there. Now, if I change my mind at some point and I decide this other Chris Betcher character, I don't want him to be able to edit things, I can always go in here and downgrade them to either a viewer or a commenter. And this is in my opinion, this is one of the huge advantages of sharing over sending a document. In the old way of doing things, you would take a document like a Word file and you would attach it to an email and you'd send it to someone. And then the problem is that you've got the original file and they've got the file as well. So now there's two versions of the file. And then they make a change to it or make some suggestions and they send you another one back. And now they've got two files and you've got two files. And suddenly who's got the real file and which is the most common one? And you end up with files called, final, so that you know which is the right one. That never happens in Google Land because there's only one version of the file and it's always the latest one. And the other thing is, if I send a file to someone on an email and then I decide I don't really want them to have that anymore, too late, they've already got it. If I share the file with them and then I decide I don't want them to have it anymore, I can simply go down to remove access and save that. And now they don't have access to that file anymore. So it's way more secure to be able to share a document rather than send a document because you always maintain control. Diane, you just asked me a question about how do you change my cursor? I'm presuming you mean this little red circle around there like that. The short answer for that is I'm currently on a Chromebook, and Chromebooks have a whole bunch of accessibility features to try and make things easier to see or to hear. And that red circle is one of the accessibility features. It's just called highlight cursor. And I've just turned it on from the settings and it does it. So it is a Chromebook feature, so not part of Docs per se. Frank, I can see you're in the document and you've written something here and he says, hi, Chris, nice pics. Frank, can you just type something again in there? I just want people to see that, look, Mar, no hands. So if Frank starts to type somewhere there, there you go. So you can see the cursor moving. You can see my hands are here. It's all magic. And Frank is typing and his name is appearing above it. So I know who's working on the document. And you can actually have lots of people working here. I think the limit is about 100 people working in a document at any one time. There you go. So it's a different way of working. If you're used to Google Docs, you'll find all of this familiar. If you're coming from, say, more of a Word background, some of this might seem very new. The other thing I'm going to show you, just because it's cool, and it's not part of the fundamentals course actually, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because I just think it's interesting, and that is in the tools menu inside a Google Doc, you've got this thing called voice typing. So we actually have speech to text built right into the Google Doc. If I turn this on and click the microphone, and in fact, you know what? It's set to English UK, which works okay for me, but if I set it to English Australia, it's probably better. So as soon as I turn this microphone on, it's going to listen to my voice. I'll allow the microphone. And now when I speak, it will take my voice and turn it into text. So even though my hands are here in front of you, and you can see I'm not actually using my hands at all, it's taking my voice and turning it into text. And I haven't been watching, but I think it's done it with pretty close to 100% accuracy. Would that be correct? Question mark? So I think that's a really nice feature of Docs. And I think if there's one thing Google does do really well, we do a few things well, but one of them is voice recognition. We've done a lot of work around voice recognition, and I think you see it paying off there with the accuracy level of that.
Chris,
So,
we've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
When you share a document with someone, do they have to have a Gmail address?
That's a really good question. If you are sharing directly with a person by name, then yes, they have to have a Google account. It doesn't have to be a Gmail address. It just has to be a Google account. So it could be like a diocesan Google account. That all works. But I will also show you there's another thing in here. Sometimes you want to share a document with people and you actually don't know who they are. Like you just want to make something generally available to someone. And with that, you can come down the bottom of this box here and you can see there's a thing that says get link. And right now it's restricted so that only the people mentioned, so that's Frank and I, we're the only two who can open this document. But if I want to click on this little link here and say, I want to share this with anyone. So anyone with the link can come in and work on this document. And then again, you can make them a viewer, a commenter, or an editor. So I'm going to be daring here and say anyone with the link can edit this document, right? So then I'm going to copy that link and I'll show you something. So I'm going to go to the chat and just drop that link into the chat like so. So if you have a look at the chat in Zoom, you'll notice a link just popped up there, and that's a link to this document. And I've just turned on the ability for anyone with the link, and that's you at the moment. No one else has this link except you because I just gave it to you, can come into this document. So you'll notice when you come into this document as an anonymous person, you just show up as a random animal. So I've got like a random blobfish, anonymous capybara, whatever that is, an anonymous axolotl. So it'll just assign you a random funny animal. And if one of you would like to come in here, there you go. So the anonymous axolotl is typing and the anonymous dragon is going to write something as well. And so anyone now can edit this document because I allowed that. And it's really important to remember that this is only happening because I allowed this to happen. And in fact, I can see you all. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to go up to that share button again. And I'm going to change this again now. So instead of anyone with the link, I'm going to set it back to being restricted and say done. And all of you folk who are typing in the document now, you'll notice that in the next 30 seconds or so, it will actually kick you out. It will tell you you no longer have access to this document because I just turned off your access. So again, part of that security model that we have at Google where I can give you access to a document until I don't want you to have access to it anymore, and then I can turn that off. So it's a much more secure system. Can someone confirm that they've been kicked out?
Yep, I've been kicked out, Chris.
Okay, so you get what I'm talking about. So you have a lot of control over the way you share things. I'm showing you that in Google Docs right now, but that idea of sharing works exactly the same in Slides and Sheets and Jamboard. Like all of our other tools use exactly the same sharing model. So once you understand it with one tool, you understand it in all the tools. Has anyone got any questions about that sharing? Hopefully, Jill, I answered yours. Nice. Okay, so there we go. So that is all I really want. There is a whole bunch of other cool stuff in Docs, but I'm trying to stick to the fundamentals here. So we can maybe come to the level 2 course and we can talk about that. But if I can just direct you to have a look at a few really interesting things in here in your own time. There's a thing here called citations. If you like kids to be able to leave a bibliography on their work, there's a citation tool built directly in here now. If you want to write something and translate it into another language, maybe you just want to send a note home to parents. And most of the first school I ever worked at was like 90% of the parents were all Vietnamese. I don't speak Vietnamese, but you can take a note, type it in English and hit this translate document here and then choose a language. So I might turn that to Vietnamese. Right, and when I translate that, it's going to generate another document in the other language. So there's lots and lots of cool stuff in Google Docs that's maybe not what you realize is in there. It does a lot of really interesting things.
Chris, a quick question. Someone wanted to know how you change your mouse.
How I change my mouse? The red circle, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just an accessibility setting. So again, it's a Chromebook thing. So I'm working on a Chromebook at the moment. If I click on the settings here in Chromebook, I've got the accessibility settings and there's this one here called highlight mouse cursor. If I turn it off, then I don't get the red circle. If I turn it on, I get the red circle. I personally really like that red circle. I think doing webinars like this, it really helps people see where I'm moving my mouse. But even when I'm just working on my computer, it's just me and the computer, I turn it on anyway because it helps me find my own mouth sometimes. Hope that helps.
Another question, Chris. Is there any reason why someone wouldn't have the voice option under the tools?
Generally, the only reason would be if you're not using Chrome. So if you're using Firefox or Edge or some other browser other than Chrome, you probably won't get that option. I'd be curious to know if the two people that mentioned that they couldn't get it. If you could let me know, are you using Chrome? Because if you are using Chrome and you don't have it, we have a problem. On Safari, yeah. So it's a Chrome thing. And there are certain things we can only do in Chrome because obviously we own the underlying technology and we can do a lot of things that we can't do in other people's browsers. So yeah, check out Chrome. How do I ensure a link within a doc is also shared? I've had problems with this. Ensure a link with a doc is shared. So if you're saying if you're in a document and you want to link to another document, yeah, you'd need to make sure that other document is also shared. So I hope that answers that question. And Tracy says, can I type a letter in English and translate to French? Yes, you can. And again, same thing, the tools menu, go down to translate document, choose the language you want to translate to. I'll do French just for you. We'll say French and say translate. What it does is it opens a whole other document and does a translation. So bonjour, c'est un doc, and so on. I don't speak French, but you might be able to tell me if it's any good. But that there is the translation into French. It doesn't hurt the original. So there's the original document, right? And in another tab, it created a second document and did the translation in there. You can translate it as into, I think it's about 37 different languages or something now.
Sorry, can I just ask a question regarding that? Are you able to just translate just a section of the document?
No, it's an all-in thing.
Okay, thank you.
So you'd have to use either Google Translate or translate the document and then just cut and paste the bits you want back in.
Thanks.
It's not selective, unfortunately. Okay, I think we've covered everything in docs I wanted to cover. So I'm going to move on to Google Slides, if that's okay with you guys. So I'm going to use my little trick here. So slides.new, I'm typing here in the address bar. And when I do that, it's going to bring me up a brand new Google Slides presentation. If you've not used slides before, it is, I guess, you know, it's our version of PowerPoint, if you like, or if you've come from the Apple world, it's our version of Keynote. It's entirely web-based, so you don't need any other software, it just runs in your browser. Now, when you open it up, it looks like this. I think you'd agree if you've used PowerPoint before, it's kind of, you probably have a pretty good idea about what to do next. It's got some themes down the side here. If you want to sort of change themes, you can do that. It's got all sorts of pretty themes there. You can obviously design other things. I'm just going to turn those off for the moment. So creating a new slides presentation, I went slides.new. I could have come in here into Google Docs and gone new slides. I could have done that. I could have right-clicked here and gone new slides. I could have done that. I could have clicked on my 9 dots and I could have gone new slides. They all work. They all do exactly the same thing. Okay. So I'm in a new Google Slides thing here. So how do I add text? Well, obviously, you know, my presentation, right, Chris? So exactly the same. If you've used PowerPoint, this is, yeah, obviously pretty easy. To create a new slide, up here in the corner, there's a little plus button. And if you click the plus button, you'll get a new slide that's the same type of slide as the one you've got. So this slide I got is a title slide. If I click the plus button, I'll get another title slide. But generally speaking, you probably want to put in a different type of slide. So I always click the little arrow next to it. And now I can see all the different slide types that I've got. So I actually want like, let's do a title only, right? So I've just dropped the slide in here. It's a title only slide. I'm going to put in my video. And I just want to show you how you add a video to slides. Adding photos to slides is exactly the same as I just showed you in Google Docs. You'd go to the insert menu, image. You've got all the same options you had before, including the camera option if you want to do it that way. So again, if I take a photo and do that, I can easily add a photo into my Google Slides. I'll just delete that by clicking on it and pressing delete, backspace. But I want to show you how to put a video in. Really simple. You go to insert and you've got a whole bunch of things you can insert into a Google Slides presentation, right? From images to additional text boxes. You can upload audio into here, but I want video. So I'll choose video and I can search or do it from a URL Or if I have a video in my Google Drive, I can actually add it directly from my Google Drive as well, which is great if you want students to put a video in that they've made, but you don't want them to put their video on YouTube. Obviously, it's generally wouldn't do that with students, but they can put their video in their Google Drive, and then they can go and grab that video from their Google Drive, and that works as well. I'm just going to show you from, say, YouTube. Well, let's go and search for a video on, oh, I don't know. They always say the internet is made of cats. So I'm going to choose for a cute cat video. Here we go, baby cats, cute and funny cat videos. Let's do that one. So I'll select it and say select, and it will then drop that video in just like that. I can pick it up and move it around. Now you'll notice that when that video dropped in here, a panel opened up on the side automatically called format options. If this panel didn't pop up, I can always bring it up because there's a button right there at the top for format options. I can just bring it up that way. So if it doesn't appear, don't panic. There's a button right there to bring it up. The thing you need to know for this level 1 certification, for those that are interested in doing that, is how do you get a video to start automatically? And right down here under the video in the format options, you can see there's an option here. When should this video play? Should it play when someone clicks on it? Should it play automatically? Or should it play manually? In other words, you've got to go and actually click the play button, right? If you want it to play automatically, I'd set it to play automatically. The other cool thing to know here is that if you have a video that's like this one, for example, is 5 minutes and 59 seconds long, but let's say I only want to show a specific section of the video. Let's say I only want to show it from 2 minutes and 10 seconds into the video, and I want it to go for 2 minutes and I don't know, 20 seconds. So I'm only going to show 10 seconds of this video. I had someone say to me one time that you can teach a student anything with the right piece of video. And so, you know, you might have a piece of video that is useful, but you don't want to spend 10 minutes watching it. You only want that little 30-second snippet. You can do that. So just put in start and end times in here. When I do that, and I hit the slideshow button now, right, there's the video. And you notice I didn't touch anything there. It just started playing because I set it to start automatically. So as soon as the slide loaded, the video started playing. Okay, so that's the option there. Versus, you know, if I did sort of manual, if I set that to manual and do the same thing, you'll notice slide loads, but the video doesn't start playing. I've actually got to go now and click the play button to make it play. So we put those options in here because, you know, sometimes people want automatic, sometimes they don't. You've got the choice. And the start and end thing is a useful thing to know. In terms of adding a comment to a slides presentation, it's exactly the same as what I showed you in a Google Doc. So you highlight the thing you want to make a comment on. So in this case, it's the cat video. I'll click on the cat video. You can see it selected because it's got the blue border around it. And now when I click on my little button up here to say add a comment, it'll open up the thing and I'll say, oh, how cute. All right. So I can leave a comment on that video. Again, the reason comments are so important is because, remember, this is a collaborative system. The idea of Google Docs and slides and everything is that people work together on things. And so the idea of being able to leave comments for each other, because, you know, I might come in here and do some work now and someone else comes in 3 hours later and leaves a comment, and I might not see that until the next day, but we're communicating with each other inside the document about very specific things we're doing. To show you presentation, it's just the slideshow button up the top here. I think I just showed you that. If I click that button, it goes into slides presentation mode and starts to show the slide. So that's pretty obvious. I showed you changing, inserting an image. Let's just do that one more time. So if I go back and let's put in another slide here, and I'll put this, I'll call this my picture, right? And I want to put a picture in there. Again, insert image. I've got all my options here. Let's do this picture from the web, and I'm going to find another picture of a cat because I like cats. And we'll do that and say insert, and there you go. It will pop that picture of the cat straight onto the slide. I didn't leave slides to do that. I did the search for the image directly inside. The other thing to know about when you do an image search from inside the document like this, all the images it returns are copyright-free images. So as long as students are using images from the internal search inside the document, they won't be infringing any copyright, which if they get it from the broader internet, you know, who knows what the situation is with that one. And the very last thing I want to show you about slides is changing the background of a slide deck. Now, when you click on the picture here of the cat, right, I'm getting some options along the top here for the picture. So formatting options and replacing the image and so on. If I click on the background of the slide, so the white area, you'll notice those buttons change. And now these buttons are relevant to the slide itself. If you want to change the background of a slide, there's a background button right there. And you can go in here and you can change it to say, let's say I want, I don't know, a blue background, right? And I can do that. So I can change the background image. Or you can come in here and you say, I want to choose an image for my background. And now I'm back in the image picker again. So I can go, let's do a Google image search for 2 more cats, because look, you can never have too many cats, right? So I'm going to do cats like that and say insert that. And that will now make that the background image of the slide. And when I say background image, it's this image that's floating around on top. I can pick it up and move it, right? Because it's sitting on the slide, but a background image is baked into the slide. I can't actually move that background image at all. Bump that by mistake. Put that back. I can't move that background image because it's literally baked into the slide. That's the difference between a background image and just a regular image. I'm just going to pause there and see if there's any questions.
There's a really good question from Gabriella in the chat about access to audio files in slides.
Audio in slides is a little bit tricky. And it doesn't quite work the way I would like it to work just yet. And that is, if you go insert audio, it will actually ask you where your audio file is stored, right? So you can see here, I've actually got some audio files. These are sitting in my Google Drive. And if I click on one of them, so I think this is Bob Marley's Jamming. So I'll click on that. And what it will do is it will create a little audio play button like that. And I can play it. So if I click play, I don't know if you can hear this or not. So I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that's playing from the slide, right? Now, if you create a slides presentation and you embed the audio, because remember the audio is coming from your Google Drive. So if you want other people to be able to hear that audio, you need to share the audio file the same way you'd share anything else. So if you have a Google slide that's shared with someone and it contains some audio that's not shared with someone, then they won't be able to hear the audio because you haven't given them permission. It's a little bit messy and I hope we clean that up, but that's the way it works at the moment.
Okay, so there's no solution to that.
Inside your Google Drive, you create a folder and you give that folder, in fact, I don't know if I've shown you this, so let me just go into Google Drive for a second. If I create a new folder in my Google Drive, and I'll just call this audio, for example, right? So you create a folder, then right click on the folder and say share, and you want to share that folder so that anyone with the link can view, or in this case, listen, okay? And you say done. And you can see it's got a little head on it now. So that's telling me that that folder is actually a shared folder. Anything I put inside that folder now will inherit the same permission. So if I grab a file and drop it in there, it will also be shared to anyone with the link. So best practice is put all your audio in one folder in Google Drive. Make sure that folder is shared so that anyone with the link can listen / view. And then when you're in your presentation and you're adding your audio, get the audio from that folder, right? And that will be a listenable thing. Hopefully that answers the question. Tony says you can create an audio file, upload to YouTube and use this link. Yeah, you could do that too. So if you could, and I've seen people do this. Let me see. So let's say this cat video had some audio in it, right? I've seen people do this. They upload the YouTube video only, not because they want the video, but because they want the audio. And then they take that and they make it teeny tiny like that. And then they just take that and put it down the corner of the slide somewhere where no one will notice it, right? And they set that to play automatically. That's another way people get around the audio thing, by using audio from a YouTube video and then kind of hiding it, or even putting a picture over the top of it so that it, it's completely hidden. There's a number of ways people sort of deal with this stuff. We have 10 minutes left, so I need to rush. All right. The other tool I wanted to talk to you about today is Google Drawings. And we don't have to spend much time on it because, surprise, surprise, it is almost exactly the same as, or it works in almost exactly the same way as Google Slides. So if I go in here to New, and you notice drawings does not show up in the list. So I go more, and there it is right there. So when I go to drawings, it will open up and it gives me this, I mean, it looks a lot like a slide, right? Except this, what this checkerboard pattern is telling me is that this is a transparent background. So if I was to create a diagram here, let's just, and I can use all sorts of shapes. So I'm just going to use this. Used to do a lot of this with my very young students, where they'd come in here and let's just cheat a little bit here. I'll do that. Drag that up. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Make that a bit. So it's shapes, right? So I might do that. I might take this shape and I don't know. Let's just make a duplicate of that. I could run a whole session on this stuff. I'm just going to do that, and then let's give this robot. Oh, I'm making an android. I didn't realize I'm actually making a little android character. So somewhere in here is a half circle. I think it's that one. So let's go in here, make a half circle. I'm going to go in here and just make that like a proper half circle, like so. And then I might take this whole thing and turn that around upside down, like so. And, oops. Yeah, like that. And we'll take that and put that on the head there. So there's a little robot I've just made, right? You can just have fun with shapes. And the thing about this is you can move these around and do things like, I'm just going to resize the background there. So that's like that. And I could add some eyes and whatnot, but you get the idea. When you're done with that, you can take this and you can download that as an image. So if you want to make yourself a simple graphic, this is certainly not Photoshop or anything like that, but if you're just making simple graphics, it's more powerful than you think. And you can download that graphic. So I'm just going to save that. I'll call that a robot, right? And I'll just save that there. And then when you go back to something like your slides presentation and you want to use that graphic in your slides, you can say insert an image. That's on my computer at the moment. It's in this folder right here. There's the robot I just made. Boom. And so I've just inserted that graphic that I've made as a picture. So Google Drawings, it works a lot like Google Slides. In fact, if you look at all these buttons across the top here for Google Slides, and then if I go over to Drawings, and you see a lot of those buttons are exactly the same buttons. So once you learn them in Slides, you know them in Drawings. It works very much the same way. So that's how that works. The other thing, just last thing in here is I just want to show you, I made some shapes, but you can also create text boxes. So if I go in here and create a text box, I'll type the word, I don't know, robot, and let's make that, you know. And again, now we're going back to the skills we learned with Google Docs, right? So I can choose a different font and I can make it bigger and so on. I can do that and I can change its color, like make it, I don't know, yellow. And I can take that sort of, oops, pick that up and move that, put that there, right? So I'm creating all sorts of things with text and images and whatnot. You don't need to know an awful lot about drawings. That's just a little taster. As long as you know you can insert shapes and text blocks, you can have a lot of fun with that. I used to get my year 2 students making, you know, pictures of, they did a transport unit. So they'd make pictures of trucks and skateboards and bicycles and stuff, all just made out of shapes. But you can do lots and lots of things with it. In the few minutes we have left, I want to show you one last tool. This tool is not part of the level 1 certification, so you don't need to know this, but it's useful to know. And that is a tool called Jamboard. So when I come here to the drive again and I go new, more, and there it is right there. It's a tool called Jamboard. And Jamboard was a huge success story for Google during the pandemic because it was a tool that allowed people to interact in a remote space. So what Jamboard is, and let me just do this. I want you guys to be able to work on this with me. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing I showed you before. I'm going to click on the share button. And because I don't have a list of all your email addresses, I'm simply going to go down to here and say, I want this to be shared with anyone with the link can edit, right? So I'm making this file available to anyone who has the link. And now I'm going to go up here, copy that link and drop it in the chat and give you the link. So if you would be so kind as to click on that link in the chat in Zoom. There you go. I can see the barrage. You're all jumping in here. Okay, here's what I want you to do. The first thing, we're going to click on this little button on the side here that looks like a sticky note. In fact, that's what it's called, a sticky note. So click on the sticky note, type a little note, maybe just put your name in there and say save. And you can change it to a different color if you want, right? And then once you've done it, if it's piling up on top of someone else's, just grab yours and move it to a new location, right? So this is a virtual whiteboard. And these little virtual sticky notes, this is a fantastic brainstorming tool for kids to create these jams where they come in here and they sort of, brainstorm their ideas and get things down, and we can sort and classify and move things around. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with a Jamboard. But that's how that works. So I can see you're all having fun there. I have 4 minutes left, so let's move on. I'm going to, up at the top of the screen here, you can see it says 1 of 1. And I'm going to click on this button here to create a new frame. When I do this, it's going to move me onto the second frame, which didn't exist until I just made it. So can I get you all to move to the second frame? And this time I want you to click on the pen down here. And if you actually click and hold on the pen, you'll see you've got different types of pens and different colors. So I'm going to grab a marker in green, and I'm going to just sort of draw some squiggles here. Maybe I'll draw a rabbit or something. I don't know. So someone's figured out how to put a picture in. You've all discovered the pen. Knock yourself out. Go for it. Go crazy. Look at you all. I love it. Now, the neat thing about this is, as far as I know, you're not all sitting in the same room working around a whiteboard. You're all sitting in different places, but we're working in one physical space. And we can draw, we could make graphs, we could draw diagrams, we could highlight all the verbs in a sentence. Like, there's a million things we could do with this shared whiteboard idea. And it's not quite an interactive whiteboard or anything. It doesn't have a lot of those sorts of features, but as the shared collaborative space, you guys are going nuts. I love it. As a shared collaborative space, I think you'd agree it's pretty interesting, and you can do a lot of things with it. Someone's already put a picture of a monkey in there. Someone just changed the background color. So I love the fact that you're experimenting. So the background color, if I come up here to the background up here, you can see I've got a whole bunch of options. So if I need some grid paper, I can do that. If I go up here on some sort of gray grid paper, I can do that. I'm going to take my hands off because I bet someone's going to go in and change something in a minute. Someone figured out the clear frame button, which obviously just cleared everything off the frame. That's a bit of a thermonuclear approach, that one. It'll get rid of everything. Excellent. So I don't think I need to say more about this one. I think it's pretty much trial and error. You can figure it out for yourself in terms of using it. The tools down the side are fairly simple. Someone put a monkey in before. If you want to add an image, it's the same kind of thing as what I showed you before. So monkey. Okay, and you pick a picture of a monkey and insert that. And hopefully what you're seeing here, a lot of the things we learnt in docs carried over to slides, a lot of stuff in slides carried over to drawings, a lot of stuff in all of them carried over to Jamboard. So once you learn one tool, you're learning all of them. We're very consistent with the way the tools work. Yeah. And the very last thing I just want to show you in here, and the way I see this getting used with students is a teacher would create a jam. They'd get students to interact with it. You might make notes. You might do some brainstorming. Over on slide 1, remember we had all these brainstorming notes that you put in here. At the end of the class, you might want to save this and keep it. And what you can do is under the 3 dots up here in the corner, you've got the option to download as a PDF. If I choose that option, it will actually take the entire jam, all the pages within it, and save it. So I'll just call this session 2, and I'll save that. And that now becomes a download of a PDF. And if I open that PDF, there it is as a PDF file. You can see there it is right there. So, wow, we covered a lot of stuff today. We didn't dive as deep as we could because this fundamentals course, remember, we're sort of trying to cover the fundamentals, but there's a lot of really deep stuff we could do on all of these tools. But we're just trying to give an overview of everything. I'll just pause for questions because we are at time, and I think I have covered everything I need to cover. I think I did well. I'll hand back to you, JJ.
Awesome, thank you. I am a real personal fan of Jamboard. We use it a lot in the Lismore Diocese. There's so many uses of it, and it's really been a lifesaver, particularly during COVID, and people have also carried on using it. And also I've learned that doc.new in slide.new. I did not know that, so that's awesome skill. So thank you very much. I always learn, there's always something that's changing that you're always learning. So thank you, Chris. I hope everyone found it useful. This is just a reminder of our next session, which is in 2 weeks' time at 3:45. I cannot remember off the top of my head what's the topics, I'm afraid, but I'm sure they will be even more knowledgeable.
Yeah, I'll tell you. The next week, we're talking about Sheets, Forms, and Google Keep.
Perfect. Awesome. Great selection. So with that, we are just a minute over time. Thank you, everyone, for giving up your Thursday. I know how precious your time is. I hope you found it super useful. Please do comment in the classroom, ask questions, respond to others' questions, and really make it your community to learn from. So have a beautiful evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thanks everyone. Don't forget to pop your questions in the classroom. Oh, JJ, can I just, one last thing, just because I'm realizing, can I just take 30 seconds?
Yep.
I'm just going to hit the share button again and share my screen, but you might need to stop first.
I will stop.
Okay, let's do this. There's one thing that I didn't mention, and I probably should, because probably driving everyone crazy, and that is back in Google Classroom. You see my screen? Yes, you are. So back in Google Classroom, one of the things that you'll notice happens a lot in Google Classroom is as everyone puts a note over here in the stream, or they're leaving comments in the classwork, you'll get an email about it, right? And you can get a lot of emails. So one of the things I want you to know is if you go to Google Classroom and you click on the 3 dashes up in the very top left-hand corner and go all the way to the bottom there, you'll see there's a thing that says settings. The settings for Google Classroom, the main setting you need to worry about is this thing called notifications, right? If you turn this on, you will get notified by email of everything that goes on in Classroom. You might not want that. You might want to choose which specific things you want to hear about, or you might decide you don't want any notifications at all, right? I have Google Classroom on my phone, and I get notifications on my phone whenever something happens in the classroom, but I don't need the email, so I've got that turned off. But if you'd like the emails, go in there and turn it on. If you don't want every single email, just turn off the things that you don't want, turn on the things that you do want, and you'll only get the emails that you've requested, and you won't get drowned in emails. Okay. Point made. Back to you.
Oh, that is a really super useful thing, because when I started using Google Classroom, I literally got drowned in email notifications. So I think, Chris, maybe we will just remind people of that next session as well to help them. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a great evening, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks on Thursday, May the 26th at 3:45.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.